And we're seeing like record levels of anxiety, anger, emotional dysregulation in boys and young men. How much of this do you see as a cultural pressure versus maybe unmet developmental needs?
Well, it starts with unmet developmental needs. There's no
Okay.
doubt about that.
That's the root.
Uh, That's the root cause, right? And the more that we educate adults on how important it is to give boys access to the full range of emotions, the better off we will be.
Welcome to Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada, where we explore the physiological and psychological foundations of true mental wellness. I am your host, Simon Brazier, and today's conversation goes straight to the heart of identity, emotion, and healing, especially for men and families navigating a culture that often disconnects us from our inner world. Our guest today is Gloria Vanderhorst. She is a psychologist, a writer, advisor, and mentor. Gloria began her career working with young boys who were too often labeled hyperactive or attention deficient, when in reality they were expressing natural energy and emotions in a system that didn't really know how to receive it. That work led her to fathers and then to a deeper realization. Our culture systematically restricts emotional development in males, cutting them off from the full range of feelings required for healthy identity, intimacy, and leadership. Using internal family systems and emotional focused therapy, Gloria helps men, couples, and families access stored emotional experiences, understanding how their history shows up in the present, and create real, lasting change. In this episode, we explore why boys and men so often end up in an emotional desert, how unprocessed history quietly shapes marriages and the family life, the critical role fathers play in protecting their sons' emotional health, and how psychological insight and biological support, like addressing chronic nutrient deficiencies, work together to support mental resilience and healing. If you care about mental health, family relationships, and whole person solutions, this conversation is certainly for you. Today's topic is raising resilient sons in a depleted world. Enjoy the show. All right. Hi, Gloria. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you and what is going well?
Oh, I am excited about talking to you and your audience. And what is going really well for me is communicating to this lovely audience about men and boys and surprising them with some information.
Well, I am a man. I have two young boys in my house, and
All right.
I am open to all of the information that will make my life easier.
Good.
So that's great. We're going to be discussing raising resilient sons in a depleted world. That's the topic I've come up with today. Just looking
Mhm.
at your bio, looking at your books, looking at that, and reflecting how can we combine our understanding and create a really good show for people to listen to. But before we jump into that topic, would you mind telling us a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do?
I am a psychologist and I come into psychology through math. I loved math as a kid and I was really good at it. And so when I went to college, I wanted to be a math teacher. And I also challenged myself to finish college in 3 years instead of four and to finish with straight A's. So I was on track to meet that goal when I ran into calculus 2. We had a teacher straight out of Harvard. She faced the blackboard, never turned around and talked to the class.
Hmm.
Wrote with her right hand, erased with her left. All right, obviously, everyone is lost, struggling to learn calculus 2 on their own. I got a D, and I was thrilled. I didn't have to take it again.
Oh, wow.
And then I immediately switched my major and my minor. And it's just one of those experiences in life where, you hit a roadblock, you hit a wall, but it's there for a reason. And I know now that that was a very positive right-hand turn. I belonged in psychology. That was my minor. And I've thrived in psychology, loved everything that I've done, from teaching to doing individual work to actually communicating with a larger audience through meeting with you. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's very hard for me to put myself in the mindset of loving math to the point where I want to be a math teacher. The only reason I'm half decent at math is from playing darts
Oh, yes.
and
Yeah.
being able to subtract quickly large-ish numbers.
Right.
But apart from a pub and a dartboard setting, yeah, math doesn't. I don't have the same love for math as you do. I obviously
Well,
recognize it's important, but
you've applied it for something very entertaining.
I think so. Absolutely, yeah. And
That's
it's
good.
how my sons learn to subtract as well. So we'll see how that goes. So
That's good.
you began your work with younger boys who have
Yes.
often been labeled as hyperactive or
Right.
attention deficient. And,
Right.
and looking back through your experience, what do you believe has been actually misunderstood about these boys, and what does that misunderstanding say about our culture today?
So the clear misunderstanding is really based on a dynamic. And the dynamic is that most preschools are run by women, and boys and girls attend preschools, and women have an affinity for little girls. They understand the thinking and the processing of little girls. They really don't understand the thinking and the emotionality of little boys.
Hmm.
So little girls will sit in the circle, listen to the story, fold their hands nicely, keep them in their lap. Little boys will be elbowing somebody, pushing somebody. They'll want to get up and move around. They
Mhm.
don't want to just sit quietly in one place. I say if we put trees in preschools, boys will be very happy.
Interesting. Yeah, I was a preschool teacher in Sweden for 7
Oh,
years,
fabulous.
and it was honestly like it's the most favorite job I ever got to do, because I would go to work and there were 20 kids in this class that just were literally in love with me, like
Mhm.
fighting to sit on my lap during circle time. And I
Absolutely.
I understand and recognize that difference between the girls and the boys, because I would struggle to perhaps like connect with some of the girls.
Mhm.
Um, but what we did clearly see, and what was an actual policy of this English speaking preschool I worked at in Sweden, was that the teachers there had to be boy teachers and there had to be girl teachers in
Fabulous.
every single class. And generally there was 3 to 4 teachers, and it would always be a 50-50 split.
That
And
is marvelous, and that is so important. I have a quick little story about a male teacher in preschool for my granddaughter. And they one day were doing finger paints, right? And my granddaughter is doing finger paints on the paper, and then she decides to travel out onto the table. And so she's putting color on the table, and then she travels down the table leg. Fortunately, she had a male teacher, and the male teacher just took out his phone and recorded her doing this. If she had had a female teacher, she would have been stopped. The
mm,
female would have said, keep it on the paper, right? Paint's not supposed to be on the table. So there's a huge difference between male and female teachers. So I'm thrilled to
mm,
hear that you had this experience and that children
yeah.
benefited from that experience.
Yeah, I think it only makes sense that, I mean, from the outside looking in, that might seem like a very progressive idea, but it just, it shouldn't really be. It should make a lot of sense that
Mhm.
that's ideally what children require in a nurturing. So, like we have mums and dads. There's a very clear
Mhm.
reason that we've evolved to have that influence on our kids. And yeah, it's I live in Canada, in BC, and there's barely any male
Right.
teachers, especially in a
Right.
preschool setting. Like it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, truly.
Um, so yeah, it's very it's just interesting that's actually a topic of conversation. It makes a lot of sense that we need both of those influences. And I love to talk about like the modern idea of masculinity as well, because it all comes from birth, like the influences that we have on our kids. And
Truly.
you can't underestimate the influence that preschool has, that school has,
Mm.
considering that, our kids are spending what, 8, 16, 24, like 40 plus
Right.
hours. Some kids,
Right.
some of the kids at my kids' daycare are there from 7 to 5, like every single day. And
That's right.
that's just the way it has to be for some parents and some families.
Mhm.
No
Right.
judgment there, but it's a monstrous influence
It's
that.
powerful.
And one of the big things I really wanted to focus on when I became a dad was that it's so important that I am conscious of the other adults in my kids' lives, whether
Mhm.
that's their friends' parents, even my family members, like grandparents
Mhm.
who are looking after. Like, I need to make sure
Right.
that I can trust those individuals to take care of my kids, essentially, but also have those
Right.
positive influences and the beliefs that I have. Like, that's a really, really important part. So I know through your work, you've described modern masculinity as an emotional desert.
Mhm.
And what are the earliest moments you think in, maybe, let's say, a boy's development, where you see emotional restrictions begin? And how does that shape the man that they inevitably become?
It's a great question because the emotional restriction begins in infancy. And this is a shocker for
Mm,
most people. The truth is that men come into the world, boys come into the world with a broader range of emotional expression than girls have. So I'm going to say that again. Men are born with a broader range of emotional expression than women. And by and large, all right, infant boys are interacting with adult females for the majority of the time when they are infants.
yeah.
Women who do not know this truth that the boy has a broader range of emotional expression make subtle reactions to the boy going higher in intensity. Boys can get more excited, more exuberant, more expressive, and they can also go deeper into the negative. They can get more irritated, more agitated, more angry. And mother or the female caretaker tends to react to that negatively.
Mm,
Even just the subtle, right, of screwing up your face and wondering, why are you so giddy? Why are you so silly? Right? Why are you so irritated? Why are you so negative? Or turning away, right? And infants are brilliant. Their only survival mechanism is reading the environment around them. I tell people, if you want to start a business and you would like to find a partner or two, rent an infant and pass this infant around the room. Infants read people perfectly. So in someone's lap, the infant is going to be cooing and happy, making good eye contact. Somebody else's lap, the infant's going to start to fidget a little bit. In someone else's lap, the infant will actually start to cry.
mm.
Nothing wrong with the infant. The infant has just read the room perfectly and told you this person is safe, this one's iffy, and that one's dangerous. Infants read our emotionality and they do it as their only survival mechanism. So when mother kind of turns her head or screws up her face, communicates, I'm not comfortable with that intensity, the brilliant infant makes a good survival decision and narrows his range of emotional expression. So, right away, before he even gets on his feet, we have taught him right, to eliminate these extremes. Eliminate the top, eliminate the bottom. Then we put them on their feet. They start walking around, and they are normal, natural human beings. They still have normal reactions to life. Someone takes their toy in preschool and they start to cry. The adult in the system will tell a boy to stop crying. The adult in the system will tell a girl, what happened? Why are you crying? What's wrong? All right. They'll be curious about the girl and uncomfortable with the boy's expression of sadness. We tell boys not to cry.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
it's super interesting, and I feel like children have this sixth sense, this connection to energy that we
they
kind of
do.
lose as adults. And
Mm-hmm.
you put it in a way that I've not really thought about it before, in regards to, they can't really fight their way in survival. They can't really run away in survival. So their instinctual survival nature as a small human is to feel out what's safe and what isn't.
That's right.
And everything at the end of the day is energy, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
light or food or
Mm-hmm.
emotions. All of this is on a frequency.
That's
You know,
right.
I know people as adults that are, without question, like more sensitive to light, or to the
Mm-hmm.
EMFs that we have. Like
Right.
some people are
Right.
more connected to those, as like, let's just say they have a stronger antenna or a more sensitive antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a lot of sense the way you put it there, that young kids are using um, that extra sense
Mm-hmm.
in their lives. And as adults, we've kind of been programmed out of that. Do you think that as adults we've lost that sixth sense, or is it just a normal evolutionary part of becoming an adult, that we don't require that safety mechanism anymore, and therefore
Oh,
we
no, no,
don't
no,
use
no,
it?
no. We still require that. We still need that.
Mm,
It's not accessible to men. It still exists. Your brain does not lose anything.
yeah.
It's an incredible storehouse. So you can still find ways to tap into those feeling states that you've denied existence in your life. They still exist, but it's very hard to open those boxes
Yeah.
again, right? They're stored in the attic and they're way back in the dark part of the attic. But it is important that we facilitate men being able to access that full range of feeling states, because you cannot develop a successful, intimate relationship with someone of the opposite sex or the same sex unless you can access those feeling states. So, the divorce rate in the United States is 50% or more. The statisticians will tell you the divorce rate is declining, and that is an absolute lie. The thing that's happening is that people are not getting officially married,
Mm,
so that when they have kids, have a house, decide to split up, there's no record,
interesting.
right? So the divorce rate has not dropped. And think about that. All right. We somehow are, as a culture, accepting of this truth that the divorce rate is 50%. That means half of our children do this very bizarre thing of moving back and forth between two houses every week, right? Two or
Yeah.
three times sometimes in the week. Now, would you like to do that? Do you want to pack a bag and move someplace else for 2 days and then come back to another place for 2 days? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I've got I
Managing
don't
our children.
yeah, I don't have a lot of examples from my childhood from like divorced parents of friends of mine, but there are a couple of examples, and they're not they've definitely got stuff in their adulthood that is, from trauma from those situations, without question. And I explain to my kids, they're 4 and 6, and my 6-year-old gets it a lot more. But when my kids constantly want our attention, or they don't want to go to bed, or they want us to
Mhm.
lay with them till they fall asleep, I explain to my boys the fact that, there are friends in his class that don't have parents that aren't together, and they have to spend 1 week with mum and 1 week with dad, and
Mhm.
their parents are never together. And I explain that there's probably the reason that happened is because the parents, at some way down the line, couldn't connect anymore. They couldn't communicate. They couldn't
Right.
relate with each other. They probably didn't have enough time together. Life, stress, divorce.
Mhm.
And I explained to my boys that it's very important that I am your father, and I am your brother's father, and I'm a husband. I have all these individual roles that I have to work on. I
That's
can't
right.
just work on being a dad all the time.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
so important that his mum and I work on our relationship and have time together, even if it's just like watching a silly show and just like
That's
holding
right.
hands on the sofa. No, this is an
Right.
important value, and that I said to him, listen, would you like mum and I to split up? And he's like, no. And I said, okay, well,
No.
this is why you need to respect that we need our space. We need our time to be able to do that, because the outcome for him, I have to explain it to him because he's 6, but the outcome is like disastrous, which it
Yeah.
would be.
Right.
And this is why I need you to respect our time. And I speak to him like I would be speaking to my 41-year-old best friend.
That
And
is
he gets
so
it.
important. That's the advice that I give to parents consistently. Your child does not have to go to sleep, all right? Your child has to be in bed,
Hmm.
but in bed so that you, as an adult, can have a break and interact with your spouse
Yep.
and build that relationship. Your child does not have to go to sleep. Walk out of the room,
Yeah.
right? Leave them in bed, educate them just the way you have done. Mom and dad need time together.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
powerful, and children respect that. They understand that.
I had a question that popped up that I just kind of made a note of. So we'll just go back at one little step there. I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you about the expectations that I feel a lot of adults have on young kids and their emotional stability. A lot of people, they're 30, 40, 50 years of age, they're parents, they've got young kids, and they've obviously got their own personal experience of, let's say, controlling our emotions,
Right,
whatever that means.
right.
And we have that expectation on these young people as well, who are just like these energetic balls of
Mhm.
chaos. And we have this wild expectation that they should have the 40 years of experience of emotional
Right.
stability like we do. Like, what would you say to like parents like that? Because I think that happens a lot.
I would tell parents to remember that emotions are natural
Mm,
and they are important. So you want to attend to them. You don't want to dismiss any of them. Right? You also don't want to, inflate them, right? You don't want to encourage your kid to inflate their emotionality, but you want to take their emotional expression seriously. And that means if they're sad, they need attention. If they're silly, they need attention,
yeah,
right? If they're excited, they need attention. They're sponges,
yeah,
right? They need attention in order to build a strong sense of themselves. So, do they need you to invest an hour paying attention? Not necessarily, maybe once in a while,
mhm,
but they cannot be dismissed. If you dismiss a child's feeling states, tell them to stop crying, for example, which is so classic for
yeah,
little boys. If you tell them to stop crying, right, you have created emotional damage that will indeed have a long term impact. All right. They will try to control those tender, softer emotions and learn that, the world, the society doesn't want that part of me.
yeah.
So I have to deny that part of me. And that's so damaging in the long run.
Yeah, that can be. I'm 100% guilty of saying that to my boys. And when I reflect and look back on it, it's certainly in times when I am in like a high stress, I'm just like, I'm the end of my rope. I'm tired. I'm depleted. I probably haven't eaten enough food.
Mm-hmm.
All these things come into it. But then there's, the majority of the time when I have taken care of all of those extra things that gives me the ability to parent better, then I'm all for, like, sitting there and being in the moment with my kids to express whatever emotions they have to do that. So I recognize the struggle as parents in 2026, and it can be difficult to always match your kids' needs and requirements, because it can seem like a constant
It can seem overwhelming.
30 hour a day a
Mm-hmm.
job. It's like it's beyond our capacity sometimes. But so I have a lot of sympathy for that. But I think there's a lot of work we can do as individuals. There's so
Yeah, but
many.
legitimizing that feeling is very important. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to stop the world, get off, and pay intense attention
Hmm.
to it. You do have to legitimize it. And if you don't have the bandwidth to attend to it at that point, you do have to make an
Yeah.
appointment with yourself
Yeah.
to go back to that child, right? And be interested in what that emotion was, obviously explaining why you couldn't attend to it at that moment, but it's still important. It has value for you and it has value for the child. So you do want to always give some form of attention
Hmm.
to the child's emotional state.
Yeah, if I ever really want my kid to do something, I'd get down like eye level and hold his hand and just like
Mhm.
talk to him. And like my success rate with that is like remarkable, rather than I'm trying to brush my teeth and I'm shouting from the other room for him to do something. It's like I wouldn't
Right,
listen to I wouldn't listen to anybody if they were shouting at me from another room.
right.
Yeah. So yeah,
Mhm.
it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's
Yep.
try and stay in the moment and understand.
Great
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. So many men enter therapy because of relationship breakdown rather than emotional awareness. From
Mhm.
your perspective, why do husbands so often disappoint, and what is usually happening, beneath the surface of things?
Yeah, the thing that really is happening is that the male is not in touch with his own feeling states because we've socialized him to deny them, to ignore them, to see them as weakness, to see them as feminine, right? So we've socialized men to avoid going deeper.
Hmm.
They can go deeper. Um, they need help to do that, right? Either through educating themselves by reading and challenging themselves to be more interested in what their emotional reactions are, or by working with someone like a therapist.
Yeah.
Or being in a group. There are wonderful groups that are forming throughout the United States to educate men about their emotional reality. There's one here in this area that has tentacles all over the United States called Everyman. And I guess I'll do an ad for it.
Yeah.
It's spelled Evryman. And they run groups, they run retreats, they bring in speakers, and their entire focus is on helping men to recapture the truth about the full range of feeling experiences that a human being is born with. And it's wonderful to see this process unfold for men. I love working with men in therapy for this very reason, right? Because I know what the potential
Yeah.
is. And when you see a man begin to understand that he has access to these feeling states, it's wonderful to see the change. I love it.
And I guess from a lot of what we've spoken about already about how like fathers and mothers can work with their young kids to kind of teach them
Mhm.
that skill set, that obviously plays a huge role when they become adults as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing like record levels of anxiety, anger, emotional dysregulation in boys and young men. How much of this do you see as a cultural pressure versus maybe unmet developmental needs?
Well, it starts with unmet developmental needs. There's no
Okay,
doubt about that.
that's the root.
That's the root cause, right? And the more that we educate adults on how important it is to give boys access to the full range of emotions, the better off we will be. And I would
Mm,
say that education is happening in part throughout the United States because teenage boys in today's culture have more interest and curiosity about how other people are feeling.
okay.
And historically, that's not been true. Boys have avoided how other people are feeling. And when you're curious about how someone else is feeling,
Yeah.
they serve as a mirror, right? So that you can be curious about, well, what are you feeling? And what would you feel if you
Yeah.
were in that boy's situation? So it is happening. It, for my sense, is not happening fast enough. I want things to go faster and to go in a more supportive way. All right, boys are struggling on their own to figure out how do I gain access to the full range of feeling states. I wish the educational system, for example, were doing what you described as your preschool
Mm.
teaching experience and making sure that men and women are available to young children and continuing that throughout the rest of their education and actually bringing the truth into education that boys need access to the full range of feeling states just as well as girls do. That'll bring down the divorce rate, and that will stop our jails from being filled with men. Our jails are filled with men for
Mhm.
this very reason that we don't give them access to the full range of emotions. So their problem solving is truly limited.
So I mean, to kind of wrap that all up, we're talking about like a lack of development and a lot of men actually not reaching the full scale of what it is to become an adult man, I guess,
Right.
psychologically speaking.
Absolutely.
It's super
Absolutely.
interesting. And that really comes into kind of the next piece I'd love to talk about, which is nutrition. And,
Mm,
we're looking to, so obviously we all know it's very important to nutrate the body, to nutrate the brain
mhm,
with good quality food and nutrition. But, we're looking to nurture and nourish people's and young people's ability to be responsible and to have structure and to
mhm,
recognize their place. Like these are all things a part of the development, and we're talking about like young kids to prepubescent teenagers, and the growth that happens with that, the hormonal changes, the
right.
neurological changes, the requirement for that development phase with nutrition is significant. And
Mhm,
here at True Hope Canada, we work with so many parents of young kids who, not necessarily all going through, 12, 13, 14 years of age, but like we've got like 6, 7, 8 year olds that are struggling as well. These kids don't fall into the let's just say the boxes of societal norms. Kids
mhm.
that might be struggling, we spoke about attention deficit disorders and
Deficit,
things like
right.
that. Like I don't think anyone knows an individual or a parent without a kid without like a diagnosis or something, even from the ages of like 4 or 5 years of age these days. It seems to be quite um, super frequent. But from your clinical experience, do you see like um, Do you see emotional work sometimes stall because maybe the brain itself lacks the biological resources to, regulate those emotions?
Oh, I think there's a very direct connection. And if you think about the importance of nutrition, all right, our bodies need certain things in order to function successfully. So we need brain food.
Yeah.
We can't function successfully if we are malnourished or if we are poorly nourished. And, there's a plethora of people who are poorly nourished,
Hmm.
right? Because they choose to put French fries into their bodies instead of salads,
Yeah.
right? Let's just face that.
Sure.
We eat poorly,
Yeah.
right? And very few people actually educate themselves on how to nurture their bodies, right? We have a, a serious difficulty with diabetes all throughout the United States. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's true in Canada as well, but we just have this plethora
Yep.
of people suffering from diabetes, and it's not necessary, right? You don't have to put your body into that condition.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're all about nutrition here at True Hope. The company was founded on providing individuals the required vitamins, minerals, amino acids that the developing brain requires,
Hmm.
and especially during those key phases of growth where the body just like ramps
Right.
up its
Sure.
need.
That's right.
And the typical teenage diet is nutrient deficient anyway. You chuck in caffeine and sugary
Right.
drinks, and the body is consistently in this place of lack.
Hmm.
And I would argue that even if you were to get 95% of your the nutrition from your into your kids from, let's say, good quality sources,
Hmm.
the fact is our soil was so unbelievably deficient in all of these key nutrients anyway, meaning the plants that grow are super
Right.
nutrient deficient as well. And we've known this from the 30s with like really,
Hmm.
really big reports, primarily coming out of the US, that our food was like 99% deficient in the majority of everything like nearly 100 years ago. So I can only imagine that what it is now. So
Hmm.
for me, supplementation these days it's not an option. It's you just have to be doing it, and especially for these young kids. And when you talk about brain health, you talk about emotions and hormones, all of these things are physical chemicals within the body,
Right.
and if you don't have the building blocks to be able to produce them, your
Hmm.
body is not going to be able to produce them in adequate amounts. And it's
Right.
honestly as simple as that. So the nutritional aspect is so vital, just as well as like supporting and helping nourish your child emotionally.
That's absolutely right. And we are not well educated in
No.
that area, right? If you think we're poorly educated about emotional development, I think it pales in comparison to our education about
Yeah.
nutritional importance. It really does. Otherwise, significant part of our population would not be
Mm.
walking around with diabetes.
Yeah, and it really sucks because we're supposed to be, we're governed by a government to take care of its people, and unfortunately, we don't get the education requirements in school to recognize, what's good food, what isn't, the
Mhm.
role of sugar, the role of lots of these things in our food system that's just like normal. And also, we don't, it's not. I have a lot of sympathy with people that like choose to like have McDonald's, let's say 3, 4, 5 times a week,
Right.
because eating healthy it's time consuming if you want to
Mhm.
cook. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't have the time. They work 50, 60 hours a week
Right.
to get food on the table. And then also like good quality, healthy, organic food is like so unbelievably expensive. So
It's
like you
expensive.
are pushed
Right.
into an economic situation, into a funnel where, if you just want to get any calories into your kids, into your family,
Mhm.
you're kind of thrown into that requirement. So yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw a government ad for carrots or vegetables or fruits, you know. We don't really see it. And I think that's just been like so many things over the last 50, 60 years. It's kind of just been pushed aside as something that the parents and the people would just like sort out. It's not important to, you know,
Mhm.
make sure that our young people and our adults and we're subsidizing the right industries to make sure that we've got plenty of these things that the people can, you know, take care of themselves nutritionally. Like, unfortunately, we have to do as individuals, as citizens, we have to educate ourselves. We have to read the right things. We have to relearn these things as adults, and it's a lot of these things that we not expect, but you know, we should have support from our schools, from our governments, from our doctors to recognize about the vital role of nutrition. It's so important.
It's incredibly important, and I love to hear that you are working hard in that area and educating people. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we have lots of conversations here at True Hope with, you know, trying to help people recognize that, you know, so our primary product here is called Empower Plus. It's a combination of 37 ingredients, primarily minerals, vitamins, and amino acids. And what we're doing is helping people take a couple of steps back to take care of
Mhm.
their foundational root requirements of nutrition,
Mhm.
because so many people who go into a health food store or speak to a naturopath or a nutritionist, they're looking for something that's going to like help them or fix
Right,
them or cure them. That's the culture we have. You know, we have a
right.
problem, we go to the doctor, we get something that's going
One
to
thing. Yeah.
fix us,
Give
right?
me a pill.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with natural health. You know, you go into a health food store, you need something for sleep, they're going to give you
Mhm.
melatonin, they're going to give you GABA, L-theanine, these like one ingredient things
Right,
which can be beneficial,
right,
but at the end of the day, our philosophy here at True Hope is we want you to be able to make these things. We want
right,
you to be able to make melatonin. We want you to be able to make serotonin and
right.
dopamine. And the requirements for these is amino acids at its
Mhm.
base. Then you need vitamins and minerals to do all the amazing enzymatic reactions, to be cofactors for all of these things. So what we're trying to do, which I believe is incredibly unique when even in the natural health world, is listen, let's take a couple of steps back here. Let's give your body the nutrition it requires for a few weeks, a few months, and let's actually see, do you have a sleep disorder? Do you have anxiety?
Right.
Do you have fatigue? Or maybe you've just been nutrient deficient for 20 years and you're over caffeinated, you're dehydrated. Let's take care of these root things that ideally in a perfect world you wouldn't have to think about that because you could just get it from your diet, but
That's right.
we just don't live in that reality anymore. So we're looking to like help people take a few steps back, take care of their foundations, and then what we find 99 times out of 100 is that people are nutrient deficient, and once we get this product into them, they're able to start thinking about the other things that are so important for mental health and well-being, which is, you know, like exercising, cooking food, being part of their community. Really gives people the ability to get back once you take care of those foundations.
That's exciting, right? Because your brain needs food.
Sure
It
does.
needs it needs really good food in order to function. So that's
Yeah,
very exciting.
you got it. And I'd love to ask you about what you see in regards to, as a psychologist, in regards to like long-term nutrient deficiencies and its connection to, you know, a lot of the things that, you know, young men experience. So yeah, as a psychologist, how do you view the role of, you know, long-term nutritional deficiencies in things like mood regulation, impulse control, emotional resilience, especially as grown boys?
Well, one of the things that happens for men because they don't have access to the full range of emotions is that they numb themselves out, right? And they
Mm,
numb themselves out with alcohol, quite popular.
yeah,
They numb themselves out with drugs, and they numb themselves out with the television.
yeah,
Right? Those are the 3 things that you will find if you look closely at the male population and ask, what are they doing with the time that they're not working?
yeah,
Right? They're drinking, they're watching television, all right? They are completely damaging their brains
Yeah.
by shutting them down and just numbing them out. And it's no wonder then that they get into conflicts with their family members, that the divorce rate increases, that they're not accessible to their children. So there's a clear interface and interaction between what you put in your body and what you can actually accomplish in terms of relationship with other people. So it's critical
Yeah.
that we pay attention to this.
Yeah, I love your use of full range of emotions, and I'm kind of
Mhm.
going to steal that a little bit in regards to, a lot of young people, a lot of people that aren't getting their full range of nutrition.
That's right.
And there's
Right.
going to be down the road, without question, issues that come up for that. It's
Right.
just it's
There's a
just absolutely
consequence.
inevitable.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a consequence.
In regards to like integrating a lot of what you've spoken about and maybe creating some hope for people, for parents listening who might be worried about raising emotionally healthy sons in a chaotic, depleted, kind of scary world sometimes, what are one or two foundational things they can get started with today?
They can educate themselves, right? You cannot show a person down a path unless you've traveled it yourself,
Mhm.
right? So if you want to be a guide for your children, then take your own emotional health seriously, right? The reason that I've written a couple of journal books is to help adults dive into their emotional histories as well as their emotions in the present and surface their own feeling states so they build a vocabulary of being able to talk
Mhm.
about their own feelings and being able to experience their own feelings instead of shoving them aside, denying them, suppressing them. We want to raise the consciousness of adults, both men and women, that they have a broad range of feeling experiences. I've put on my website a list of feeling words that anybody can access. Just go to my website and download this list of feelings. I think it's 3 or 4 pages, 3 or 4 columns of feeling words.
Okay.
And the fun thing about your brain is that your brain can recognize what you're feeling in the moment, even when you can't produce it. So if
Mm.
you scan through these lists of feelings, the experience that you're having in the moment will pop off the page, right? It'll just smack you in the face. Oh, I'm feeling this. And then suddenly you can have a conversation about feeling demoralized, right? Which is probably a word you wouldn't have generated on
Mhm.
your own, right? You would have
Yeah.
said, I'm feeling angry if you're a male.
Yeah.
You would have said, I'm feeling depressed if you're a female, but there's a big difference between those and demoralized.
Yeah.
So now I could really talk about the feeling that I'm experiencing. So it's critical that as adults, we educate ourselves and open up our brain's capability to experience the full range of feeling states. So you can do that with the feeling sheet. You can do that with my book, Read, Reflect, Respond 3 R's of Growth and Change, which is a wonderful journal book that lets you draw, scribble, as well as use language to respond.
Amazing. So in your book, if you could leave fathers listening with one clear, maybe warning and one clear hope about raising sons in this culture, what would those be?
It would be that it is dangerous to maintain the cultural expectation that you are to deny yourself access to the full range of feelings. Open yourself up, right? Educate yourself that you are a normal, healthy human being. You have the ability to gain access to the full range of feeling states that will benefit you, and it will benefit everyone that you're in relationship with, whether it's family, work relationships, fun relationships. It will have a significant benefit. So educate yourself.
I think just on that topic of education, because if we had this conversation 30 or maybe even 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you would have to sign up for courses in person. You would have to go to the library. You might even have to do
Right,
university courses to learn this type of
right.
information. But we live in a world of podcasts now where you
Yeah,
can go for a walk and you can have access to
that's
some of
right.
the smartest, most educated individuals on the planet. We really do live
Right.
in a time where accessibility to the best possible information, or like a broad spectrum of um, opinions, I guess.
Right.
But I really find it valuable, just for me in my life, to have a few individuals that I recognize to be type of like mentor type individuals. That I've never met these people, but
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that they talk. I love the way that they hold themselves. I love their confidence. And I think that having role models, even as a 41-year-old man, I think is really, really important as like kind of an example, as
Mm-hmm.
something to um, continue to learn from, to question things that come up for me. And I love my ability now, as to say, as a 40-year-old, because as a 30-year-old and a 20-year-old especially, I did not have the skill set of being happy to be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or recognizing that I don't know everything, and have that's a really big skill set. And also being able to ask for help,
Right.
like, and support,
Mm.
like, without question, the most incredible question you could ask somebody is for help and support
Right.
with something. And
That's
being,
right.
I want to say, like, being man enough to
Mm-hmm.
ask for that is
Mm-hmm.
super important, because everybody needs that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to put that ego aside as frequently as possible is a really valuable skill for people. And as an adult with kids, trying to instill that and setting that example for them. And I think that I would, going forward as a parent, I would, and I've had this conversation with friends of mine who are going to become parents, and they sometimes ask for advice, but sometimes they don't, which is also okay. It's like, you want your kid to obviously love you,
Mm-hmm.
but there are lots of kids that love very abusive parents. But there has to be a respect there as well, and you want to be an example of the man you hopefully develop them into becoming. And I think that that's a good place to be.
Mm-hmm. So it is important that we value relationship and that we value attachment and that we really understand how the people that we choose to attach to influence us,
Yeah.
right? So, as you said, sometimes our attachments influence us negatively.
Mm.
Raising your consciousness to really evaluate, how does this relationship support me, help me, or hurt me, is a really good question
Yeah.
to ask. And then having the courage to seek out relationships that support you and help you is the next step if you're in relationships that are damaging or controlling or demoralizing.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of those out there. But the good news is that there is help available for everyone, right? You don't have to stay in a relationship that is harmful. There
Yeah.
really is help available.
Well said, Gloria. Thank you. Yeah, and just one piece from me that I'd love to just share with people is that I like to, just as, because the idea of change and development is very scary for a lot of people, because it's
Mhm,
unknown territory, and human beings just don't really really, really enjoy change.
mhm,
But for me, like, one of the main reasons I exercise and choose to eat well most of the time is because I don't want to get Alzheimer's when I'm 70, 80 years old.
mhm,
So I'm doing these things now to benefit myself in the long term. And I think of the same with my kids. My eldest kid is 6. I am one third through the
right,
journey of him being an adult, where it's 18. And I like to think my job is
right.
done at that point, not
Mhm,
as a supportive role, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. But like in regards to teaching him to be a man, I've got
That's
18
right.
years, maybe even less.
Right.
And that's my, I think that when I can put my emotional piece to the side a little bit, my pure rational mind is like, my job as a dad is to get him to adult years as a more competent individual as possible.
That's right.
And it's good to come back to that in the present moment, because
Mm-hmm.
every little thing I say, every little thing that I do, my behaviors, how I hold myself, all of that goes into this sponge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to and it's going to develop an amazing person, a good person, or
That's
whatever in the
right.
future. And I've got a big responsibility there, and it's something that everyone should take seriously.
Absolutely. Parenting is a wonderful experience if you educate yourself
Hmm.
on how to do it well. And there's a long term benefit because that child will then turn around and take care of you,
Yeah,
right? When you're 80, 90, 102.
that's right. That's right. Well said. Okay, Gloria, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners will as well, and I really appreciate that. But before we leave, can you let us know where we can learn more about your work, please?
Yes, you could access my website, and it's www.drvanderhorst.com. So it's
Amazing.
www.drvanderhorst.com. You'll find all kinds of resources there. You can make an appointment with me, but you can also download the feeling sheet. You'll find explanations of the excellent approaches to working with adults. You'll find resources and books, things that you can tap into. It's a great resource. So go there and explore.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure the link to that is available for people. And what I usually do with my guests, if there's any other amazing resources that you would recommend, you can send them to me, and I'll put them in the show notes so people can access them as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again, Gloria. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is it for this episode of True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. You can connect to the show notes if you want to learn more and connect with Gloria. But other than that, we'll see you soon.